Hello, hi, and welcome. If you are new here, my name is Sarah, and this is Wicked Reading. So today I'm going to talk about all of the books that I read in February. It was a much slower reading month compared to my January reading month. So in the month of February, I ended up reading 9 books, which totaled to 3,420 pages. My top moods were dark, adventurous, tense, mysterious, emotional, and then I had some sad and funny in there as well. Majority of the books that I read in February were under 300 pages at 44%, being 4 books that I read, while 22% of them, meaning 2 of the books that I read, were greater than 500 pages, and then the remaining were between 300 and 499 pages. My top genre was horror, followed by LGBTQIA+, followed by fantasy, literary, and then a bunch of other ones. I did end up reading 1 short story collection, which I am proud of myself for because that was a goal for 2024. I wanted to read more short story collections, so I did read 1 in February. As far as format goes, I physically / digitally, so with my eyes, read a total of 1,514 pages, with digital being 22%, so that was 2 books that I read, and then physical print being 44% of the books that I read, so that was 4 books, and then the remaining were audiobooks. I listened to 3 books on audio. The audiobooks technically equated to 68.43 hours, but I did not listen for that long because I had all of those audiobooks sped up between one of the audiobooks I didn't speed up that much because it was kind of hard to follow to begin with, and I felt like the narrator spoke pretty quick to begin with. So I think I only sped one of them up by 1.25 or something like that. But I know another one I sped up by 2. So I did end up rating all of the books that I read, and my average rating was 3.44. I did have a 5-star for the month, and I really, really loved the book so much. It is probably going to be my top books for 2024. It was fantastic. It was an easy 5-star, super excited. So let's talk about the book. So the short story collection that I ended up reading was Peach Pit. This was edited by Crystal Buckley and Molly Llewellyn, I think. And this included stories from 16 different authors. There was a story by King-Ming Chang, a story by Alison Rumfitt, quite a few other authors that I hadn't read from before. I think Alison Rumfitt was the only author in the collection that I had previously read from. Otherwise, I was being introduced to so many other new authors, and I'm so excited because I can't wait to check out some of their larger, bigger works now. But this one was very good. I did individually rate each short story, and so on average I rated it 3 stars, but there were quite a few standouts. So there were 6 stories that I gave 4 stars or higher, and it was Fuckboy Museum by Disha Philyaw, Caller by King-Ming Chang, Sick by Alicia Elliott, Miss Wrong by Chantel V. Johnson, Buffalo by Alison Rumfitt, which I actually gave 5 stars to. That was the only story that I gave 5 stars to. And then lastly, Composition by Aaliyah Whitley. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing any of those, but those stories really stuck out to me. This collection has a very good mix of kind of unhinged women, some very strange stories. There's a couple of stories that lean very kind of dystopian Black Mirror feeling. There's a few stories that have a lot to do with just growing up as a woman, and overall I had a really fun time with the collection. There's quite a few different formatting choices. A few of the stories are in second person. There was one called Aquafina, which is kind of prose. So I really ended up enjoying that one. So then I ended up listening to the audiobook for Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. I ended up buddy reading this with Katrina Brown here on BookTube, and I had a really fun time with this, surprisingly. I was a little bit nervous because it's so big and people love this story. Now I will say I don't think I love it as much as a lot of other people do, but I did really enjoy it. I had a little bit of a rough start just because the way that the story is told is something that doesn't always work for me and something I don't really love right out the gate. It's told in a way that our main character, Gabriel, Well, let me tell you what the story is about. We follow our main character, Gabriel, who is part of this group called the Silver Saints, and they pretty much hunt vampires after vampires just kind of one day invaded the world after some like fog pretty much blocked out most of the sunlight. So he's part of this group that hunts vampires, and the group is very like religious based. So there's kind of a lot of references to religion and all of that. So know that going in. There's quite a bit of religious talk. Not saying our character necessarily drinks the Kool-Aid or believes what some of the standings are, but there is quite a bit of religious stuff going on. But anyways, the story opens up where Gabriel has been captured by the vampires, and then the whole story is him telling his captor the story that led up to him being imprisoned, pretty much. So that is not a storytelling style that gets me excited. I actually kind of dread it. So I started reading this physically, and it just felt very, very, very info dumpy in the beginning. And it was just kind of a lot, and I was tabbing quite a bit that ended up not really mattering that much, to be honest. So it felt a little info dumpy. I didn't love that the story was told the way it was told, but then I turned to the audiobook, and the audiobook narrator is really great, really fantastic, and I'm so glad I did because the audiobook was so immersive, and I got really, really into the story once I was listening to the audiobook. So I recommend the audiobook personally. We have some pretty gray morality characters. The main character, Gabriel, literally reminds me of like Geralt of Rivia meets Van Helsing. He is very kind of grumpy and kind of an asshole and just like not very nice, but he also has moments where he very much is like soft and very much cares about people. So I just really liked the characters because they just had a lot of complexities going on, a lot of gray morality, and there's quite a few, we kind of like jump some of the timelines, and some of the timelines are kind of like journey driven, which I enjoy in a fantasy. I like journey driven stories. Other ones are kind of like, I don't know, different, but I really enjoyed it. I had a fun time. Me and Katrina read this for February because the sequel will be coming out in March. I believe March 14th is when it comes out, something like that, mid of March. It comes out then, and I will definitely be getting a copy. I already pre-ordered it, but honestly, I will be listening to the audiobook. I will probably do some immersive where I like follow along with the book with the audiobook. The narrator is the same for the audiobook for Empire of the Damned, which is the sequel, which I didn't say its name yet, but Empire of the Damned is the name of the sequel, and it's the same narrator, so I will definitely be listening to the audiobook again. Oh, and I don't know if I said, but I did end up giving this 4 stars. I did really enjoy it, and I loved pretty much all of the characters except Greyhand. I think his name is Greyhand. I didn't really like him, but I liked all the other characters just because my issues with the beginning, the info dumpiness, and kind of just the way that the story is pretty much a story being told the whole time isn't my favorite thing, especially to read it physically. So I did have a couple of issues with it, so 4 stars. Another book that I ended up listening to on audiobook was Tower of Dawn by Sarah J. Maas. This is the 6th book in the Throne of Glass series. It's kind of like 7 if you want to include Assassin's Blade with the prequel and all of that. But this book, I did not love this book. So I can't say like too much, obviously, because it's so far into the series, but this book follows Empire of the Storms. And in Empire of the Storms, a lot of stuff happens. A lot of stuff goes down. This book is following a different set of characters during that same time period. So this book and Empire of Storms are happening at the same time, but we're following different characters in each book. I really like the characters we follow in Empire of Storms. For the characters that we follow in Tower of Dawn, I don't really like that much. I feel bad. I just don't have as deep of a connection to the characters that we follow in this book. If I'm being totally honest, this book was very, very boring for me. Very boring for me until maybe the last 100, 150 pages. Stuff like happened but it was like, I mostly cared about it because it was stuff that we needed to know, and it was like good information for the world in general. So it's not like I cared about the last 100 or 150 pages because of like the characters or anything like that. It was just, I knew that there was gonna be stuff in this book I needed to know. And pretty much the last 100 pages is where you learn everything that you really need to know. So the rest of the story was just a bit boring for me because I just like don't care as much about these characters. I appreciate them. I like Irene the most, and she is like a callback from a different book. So I appreciated that, and I like her, but we follow Kale in this one mostly, and I just like really, I don't like not like him, but I just like don't care either. You know, I appreciate some of the stuff that he's done in the series, but I really did not care to read about him for this long. If this were shorter, I think I would have appreciated it more, but it got quite a bit repetitive with what some of the characters were going through. It has a lot to do with like character development and like personal healing as well as like physically healing. So I understand why it exists, but I just like, I could have gone with a much shorter version. My Goodreads review for this was literally, this could have been an email, and I stand by that. I gave it 2.5 stars. I didn't hate it. I just really did not care for it at all. And it was quite a slog to get through. So there's that. But good news is I have started Kingdom of Ash, and I'm already enjoying it way more than this one. So it's looking up. Then I read To Be Devoured by Sarah Tantlinger. This is actually I guess like a short story. It's 72 pages, so it's very short. It's very quick read. So since it's so short, the only thing I will say about it is we follow this girl, our main character, who becomes very obsessed and enthralled with the vultures around her house. And I'll leave it at that. I did enjoy this one. It gets quite, I don't know, I guess gory. It deals a lot like with decay because of the vultures. And it does get quite gory now that I think about it. But it just also didn't impact me as much as I thought a story like this would. I don't know. I don't know what it was. It's just like, I feel like maybe I didn't get enough of the character. Like I didn't get to know the character enough. It did feel a little bit disconnected. But at the same time, what was happening was interesting. But I don't know. Something just like made me not totally immerse myself into the story. It might have to do with the fact that it is so short. And if I'm reading a story like this, I feel like I subconsciously don't attach myself as much to the story because I know it's going to be over so quick, if that makes any sense. That's also why I struggle with like short story collections, which is why I wanted to go out of my way to read more of them, is I feel like I don't connect as much with shorter stories, but I also just like write them off very early on, so I wanted to give more a go. So anyways, I feel like maybe I might have been suffering from that with this one, but I don't know. I still liked it. I'm giving it a 3.5. I still think it was like good and interesting. I feel like maybe this is one that I would have wanted like more from. I would have wanted more of like a novel out of it because it is a very interesting idea. And I really like books that kind of deal with decay and like death and stuff like that. Like vultures is a very interesting like animal to begin with. So I think it was a really, really interesting premise, and I did like a lot of the stuff in the story, but I just wanted more. So I'm giving it 3.5. If it sounds interesting, I definitely recommend it. And if you know any books that have like a similar vibe to this one, please let me know, because I definitely want to get more into this type of story. I want to find a book that's like this, that kind of just satisfies me a little bit more and makes me feel a little bit more connected to it. And then I read 4 other books, but I'm not gonna talk about them. Sorry, I'm not gonna talk about them here because I have a whole vlog where I talk about them. But I'll show you at least the ones that I own physically, and I'll tell you what the books are. I read Circe by Madeline Miller, Chlorine by Jade Song, Notes on an Execution by Dina Kukafka, and The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. So I read these books in my Zodiac Chooses What I Read reading vlog, and I know it's very long. But it is time stamped. So you can skip ahead past all like the Zodiac stuff and past me picking the books, because you already know what the books are now. You can skip all of that and go right into the reading vlog. I think it starts at like 23 minutes or so, and then it's just a reading vlog from there. And I keep it pretty, I feel like pretty short and sweet for 4 books. And you can see what I think there. I will say my 5-star read is in that reading vlog. So if you haven't seen it, guess which book out of those 4 you think was the 5-star. And then once you watch that, you can let me know if you guessed right or not. Oh, and then real quick, I forgot to mention in the beginning of this video. I meant to mention it and I totally forgot. So I made a mistake in my January wrap up where I talked about Haunting of Valkwood by Gwendolyn Kist. I talked about it there in my January wrap up, but I actually read it in February. I was just like filming that video kind of late. So I actually read that in February, like I finished it in February. So that book is actually built into all my stats that I shared today. So that's why in January I told you guys I read 12 books, but then I proceeded to talk about 13. I should not have talked about that one yet. I was just really excited, I guess. So that book, technically I did read for February. I caught the mistake way late. So it was beyond me being able to edit it out or anything like that. Anyways, so that's why I only technically talked about 4 books with you guys here today, because the 5th one I already talked about, and then the other 4 are in the reading vlog. So that is going to be everything for today's video. I know it was super short and sweet since I got out of talking about 4 books, but that's it. If you made it to this point in the video, leave me a star emoji down below so that I know. While you're down there, go ahead and let me know what your favorite read of February was. As always, thank you so much for spending some of your time with me while I sit down and talk about books. If you haven't yet, please give the video a like, subscribe for future content, turn on the bell notification, all the fun YouTube things that help your girl out, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye!